Hey class, Prof JC here, and I want to welcome you to week 2, our first video. And I'm excited about the next few weeks with all of you. We have obviously 2 classes that we're doing together, and in both classes we'll do videos. The other class, obviously, we're doing mental models. In this class, as I was thinking about the videos that I wanted to do and the work that you're already doing a lot in terms of reading and studying about the practice of leadership, and you're probably all leadershiped out, right? Because you're at that point in this program where you are in the home stretch for sure. You're in the home stretch. And so I thought with this particular class, your final 3-unit class, 4-unit class, whatever it is, I thought I would take the time and share with you just from my own experience. And I think we're going to call this like 7 lessons or something like that, or seven the most important lessons. I don't know. By the time we have it published, I'll have that written out. But I wanted to walk through 7 different lessons that I've learned in my own lifetime. And if I could leave you with anything at the end of this program, as a leadership professor, if there's some thoughts I could leave with you, I want to spend the rest of the time that we have together the next few weeks doing that. So every single week I'll provide a lesson. Some of these will be leadership in nature. Some might be a little bit motivational, kind of like what we're going to talk about today. Some might be more personal in nature. I'll just share a story with you and kind of give a lesson. But these are probably some lessons that if I never see you again, and for most of us on the call, I'll probably never see you again. You'll never see me again. This is our last few weeks of interaction. Maybe for some of you, your last few weeks of interaction with Point Loma. I want to make sure that I've passed on any words of wisdom that I have. I'm still in my 40s, so I don't know how much wisdom I actually have, but I definitely have some lessons that I've learned in terms of leadership and personal lessons, and I want to share those with you, and these will make up our videos in the coming weeks. So today might be one of the most important ones, but I'm going to say that every single week, I guarantee you, because I think that all of these lessons are really important for you as you go about, the rest of your life. You go out there and you take on the world and do all the big things that you're going to do to lead well, to be well, to live well, right? All of that. That's what we want from our Point Loma graduates. I've said this in classes before, that if you make all A's in the program and you get out and you got a 4.0 GPA, but you still can't lead, or you still are not living the way that you want to, or you still got things happening in your life that you don't want, to happen, you're not living an intentional life, then that's not really, this program hasn't done service to you. What really needs to happen is you walk out of this program, you walk out of the time that you've spent, and you're just better. And the people you lead become better. The organizations that you lead in become better, and you become better on a personal level. That's what we want. So these lessons, I think, are really important, and I'm excited to share them with you. Today, the power of gratitude. I want to talk about the power and the science of gratitude. And so what I want to do is share my screen with you. And as I share my screen, we're going to find an article here that is, let me make sure I can share my screen, okay? Okay, so here we go. Desktop, okay, let's share it right here. You can kind of see me up here. I'll make myself a little bit larger over here. How do I do this? Okay. All right, so this is an article about gratitude, but I think it's important for me to just kind of step back and kind of share with you why gratitude. I think that this is one of the most important lessons that you can take with you, and if you don't get this, in my opinion, nothing else is going to make sense in life, and you're never going to reach your full and highest potential. There's something about turning around and saying thank you, whether you say it to the universe, you say it to God, you say it to other people. There's something about having a mindset of gratitude that in everything we do, getting up in the morning, driving to work, or maybe you get to just log in from your home. That's something to be grateful for, right? You get to log in from home. The fact that you have a job, if you got food in the refrigerator. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I forget the Tim Urban. I love listening to Lex Friedman. his podcast. He has just the greatest guest on there. And I know some of you might be Joe Rogan fans, or maybe Patrick Bet-David, or I don't know who you listen to if you listen to podcasts, but Lex Friedman tends to be one of my favorite. He just has some of the most interesting guests on there. And he had on a guest the other day. It was Tim Urban was his name. And he was talking about the fact that we take so much for granted in the life that we live, right? We get up in the morning, and if you're anything like me, the first thing I do after I get up, I drink a little water, and then I head to the restroom, and I do my restroom every morning. I don't care what it is I'm doing. I don't care if I'm going to the gym. I make sure I get into I make sure I get into the shower, and I take it for granted. I just turn it on, and then it falls out. And Tim Urban, he explained it that for all of history, right? The thousands of years that the world has been around, and that human beings have been around, 250,000 years, some scientists say. For all of that time, and all of the space of history, right? All of the world, and how history has been experienced through billions of people down through history. You and I, we get to live in a time and space, and in a place where we walk into a little box and we just turn a knob and hot water comes out. And that's how we get to start our day or end our day. Even people in today's world, people in different countries and, different parts of the world, that would be something that they just can't even imagine. We get to walk into grocery stores where there's food right there. Everything we need, right? Fruits and vegetables and cereals and meats and whatever it is you want. You can walk into a Walmart and you can get clothes and food and get your tire changed and get your oil changed. All of this can happen, right? And you pay a little bit of money, you exchange currency, and then you go home, and that could have been 3 hours out of your day. Do you understand that there are places in the world still where people don't live like that, right? The understanding that even in the United States of America, even the poorest of the poor, and I don't want to make light of poor people. I don't want to say, hey, poor people need to be grateful. I'm not saying any of that. But even in the United States of America, if you are the poorest of the poor, you probably, so for instance, this is what I hear. If your household makes $30,000 a year or more, I want to say you're in the top 1% of the entire globe. $30,000. We look at like $30,000 a year here in the United States, and we say, well, that's kind of poverty level, right? A family. But that's more than most people across the globe and throughout the span of time in history have made, throughout an entire lifetime, and if you're bringing that home in 1 year, that makes you in the top 1%. So I'm saying all of this to say we have so much to be grateful for. And most of the times we miss it. Because we get busy with life, we get busy with the things going around us. And here's something I'm trying to tell you. I went through life without gratitude up until about the year 2000. It was late 2017. And I'll tell you the story. I was in a job that I didn't like very much, and I didn't like the people. I didn't like my boss very much. And this was just 2017. And I remember driving up to Irvine. So I was living here in San Diego, and I drove up to Irvine, and I went to meet with this. He's kind of an executive coach, business coach, consultant, whatever. He's got a lot of contacts, and I thought, I'm going to go meet with him. I'm going to take him out, and by the end of our time together, I'm going to have charmed him so much that he's going to offer me a job right then and there. I'm going to get my dream job right then and there. I couldn't be any further from the truth. I get up there and I take him to a nice restaurant and I pay for all this. And we probably were there for 3 hours. He gave me 3 hours of his time. But immediately, I asked him about him and got to know his story and everything he's been through. But then he started picking apart. He said, well, tell me why we're here. And I just started talking. And I didn't realize it at the time, but what came out was just a lot of complaining. I started talking about my boss and my job and all these things I didn't like. And then at the end, I had the gall to ask him, hey, so I'm here today to ask you, do you have anyone that I could work for? Do you know of anyone? Can you make an introduction for me? I'm coming to the table with all this wisdom and smarts and all this, and any company would be lucky to have me, right? Like that's the attitude that I have. And then he just sits me down and he said, you know what, JC, I really appreciate your time today, and I hope we get to stay in touch. But he said, there's nothing that I could provide for you today, and even if I could, I wouldn't do it. He said, when I hear you talk about almost every aspect of your life, there's one thing that's missing, and he said it's gratitude. And he started talking about my boss and started talking about my job. And he said, well, what have you done to improve the relationship you have with your boss? What have you done to improve the relationship you have with your coworkers? What have you done to improve the organization and the culture where you're at? Right? So what have you done right there? And then he said this, and he said, my encouragement to you is to get back there, get back in your car, and I want you to start with gratitude. I want you to start expressing thanks for everything you've been given. And every day I want you to get up and start expressing thanks for your boss, and thanks for your coworkers, and thanks for your job, and thanks for the organization that you get to work in. And I drove home from Irvine, and I was stuck in traffic because I'd met him for lunch. And so I got right in that traffic. It was like 4.5 to 5 hours home between Irvine, and it was just a horrible day with traffic. I was pissed. I'll be honest with you. I was so upset. I was thinking, man, I took this guy out. I paid probably, it was upwards to like $100 or whatever for lunch, right? For lunch for the two of us with tip and everything. It was maybe like $110. I mean, I treated this guy, and I expected some, and I come back and I'm grumpy. And then within a few days, I listened to a friend of mine who's teaching at a church, and he talks about gratitude. And then, for years, people have been telling me I need to read the book, The Secret. And I saw it was up on it. It somehow it came up on Netflix, and I said, oh my goodness, all these things. And it's not that I'm not necessarily recommending the movie, The Secret, although I am recommending the movie, The Secret on Netflix. I don't officially recommend it because I don't know what your faith journey is, but there's a lot of kind of new age and spiritualism. That stuff doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me at all. But the biggest message of the movie is gratitude, right? And so I ended up turning it on, and I was listening, and all these things, right, within a span of like 3 weeks in 2017, all of these things were pointing me towards gratitude. And so I began to try it, and I got to tell you what, slowly but surely, my life began to get turned around. And it became to the point where everywhere I go, I try to, sometimes I forcefully, in a family therapy session, I'll tell you this, my own family, I've got a blended family, and so we're bringing together people, and I'm trying to force some gratitude habits on my stepdaughters, and that's probably not working too well, right? So I'm learning how to do this. I can't just force this on people. But any chance I get, I try to teach this message of gratitude. I try to talk about it. I preach the message of gratitude. It just means that much to me, because I'm here to tell you, my life in 2017, in that short span of time, about 5 years, 5-6 years, my life at the end. So that was the end of 2017. I didn't really start gratitude till 2018. So from 2018 to 2023, 5 years, literally my life went from not really enjoying much about my life, being pretty miserable, to today I can tell you I'm living the life of my dreams. And that's not a weird statement. It's true, and I credit it. I credit a lot of things, right? There's a lot of hard work that went into that and stuff, but it started with this mindset of gratitude. There's something about when we stop and we say thank you to God, to the universe, to, if you have a different faith background, whatever that looks like for you, when we stop and we just have a mindset of gratitude and we just say thank you, there's something about it that the universe just kind of works in our favor. And I will tell you that. I can't tell you this enough. But then there's science behind it. And so that's what I want to kind of read through a little bit, and then we'll get to our question. I just can't stress this enough. I could talk about this for a half hour because it's just that important. So here's what the executive summary, this is an article from Berkeley, okay? It's from the Greater Good Science Center, and it's a white paper prepared for the John Templeton Foundation by the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. Now, if you know anything about UC Berkeley, this is a pretty liberal, what they would call, it's a very liberal institution, a very liberal university. It's not a place that you would be thinking that they would be studying things like gratitude. But this is an incredible article. Came out in May of 2018. So, hey, I didn't see this article until just about a year or two ago. But obviously, they were experiencing gratitude as I was learning about it as well. So it sounds like a good timing. So let's just read a little bit of this, and then we'll kind of pull off it. Throughout history and around the world, religious leaders and philosophers have extolled the virtue of gratitude. Some have even described gratitude as social glue that fortifies relationships between friends, family, and romantic partners, and serves as the backbone of human society. And I believe all of that. But what exactly is gratitude? Where does it come from? Why do so many people seem to be naturally more grateful than others? And are there ways we can foster more feelings and expressions of gratitude? And that might be something you're thinking as well. Okay, I hear you, JC. I hear you saying this, that the gratitude's a good thing, and I need to have more of it in my life. But how do I do that? How do I make that happen? So the article goes on to say, it goes on to define gratitude. Most people have an instinctive understanding of what gratitude is, but it can be surprisingly difficult to define. Is it an emotion? Is it a virtue? Is it a behavior? Indeed, gratitude can mean different things to different people in different contexts. However, researchers have developed some frameworks for gratitude, and here's some of them, right? Robert Emmons and Michael McAuliffe define gratitude as a two-step process. One, it's recognizing that one has obtained a positive outcome. So it's recognizing whatever it is. I woke up in the morning. I have a car. I have a job. I'm getting a degree from Point Loma Nazarene University, something that that people across the world would kill to have this kind of opportunity, to have the education that you have, right? So you look at these opportunities, and the first step is recognizing that I've obtained this positive outcome, right? I woke up, I'm going to my job, I have this beautiful spouse or partner, I've got these amazing kids, right? And maybe they're kind of pains in the rear end sometime, but for the most part, they're amazing kids, and I love them so much. I've got this home, I've got roof over my head, I've got these grocery stores I can go to any time of the day, between the hours of like 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. and grab whatever kind of food I want. So we recognize that. And then number two, it's recognizing that there is an external source for this positive outcome. And that's really important for us to understand, right? This is, I think, the power of gratitude. It's one thing to recognize the good things in our life, but then it's important for us to recognize that there's an external source for this. And that's why I think faith is so great, right? If you're a person of faith, is that if you're an evangelical Christian, maybe you look and you say it's God, right? It's your idea of God. If you're other faiths, then you've got other things that you look at too. But basically, it's recognizing that there's an external source. But it may not even just be God, or it may not just be some higher power. It could be someone else, right? So it's, when I get up in the morning, maybe it's the realization, that we say, hey, thank you, God, for another day of living, right? But maybe I have a job and I say, you know what, thank you to my boss for hiring me. Thank you to the HR department. Thank you to all the things that went into place for that I could have this job. If you've got the education you want, maybe it's thanking your parents. It's recognizing that, maybe your parents aren't helping you today with your education, but they sure did at the very beginning. There are millions of people throughout history, billions of people throughout history who haven't come close to having the kind of education you have. So it's those two acts, it's those two aspects. It's recognizing that you've attained a positive outcome, and then also recognizing that there's an external source for this positive outcome. The article goes on to say, while most of these positive benefits come from other people, hence gratitude's reputation as other-oriented emotion, people can experience gratitude towards, again, we talked about this, God, fate, nature, right? Some psychologists further categorize 3 types of gratitude, and here they are. Gratitude as an affective trait, one's overall tendency to have a grateful disposition. I'm going to encourage you to get there as quick as you can so that everything that you experience, you're thinking about gratitude. It could be a mood, right? A daily fluctuation in overall gratitude. So some moments you're more grateful than other moments, but it kind of comes and goes, right? It could be an emotion, a more temporary feeling of gratitude that one may feel after receiving a gift or a favor from someone. Most of the studies in this paper focus on trait or dispositional gratitude and or gratitude as an emotion. I'm not going to read too much more into this, but it's important that you understand that there are benefits to gratitude. There are science-backed benefits to gratitude. And I don't really have time to, kind of dive into all of these. But if we come back up here, the individual, because that's important for you. So research suggests that gratitude may be associated with many benefits for individuals, including better physical and psychological health, increased happiness and life satisfaction, and decreased materialism, and more. Okay, so we're not going to go into all those right now because we don't have necessarily time to do it. I just want you to know that there's science. There's science that backs up the fact that when we begin to think with gratitude, if you're having a bad day and you begin to switch up and you say, okay, in the moment of this, right, I begin to express thank you, right? There's something that happens to our mind. It rewires. It's actually a scientific process that happens in our brains that rewires our brains more towards a positive bent. And I will tell you this, again, from my own personal life, how true this is. I can think back to some of the, hardest times that I've ever, that I've been through. In the last 5 years, I'll be transparent with you. Right after I started experiencing gratitude, in that same year of 2018, I actually went through a divorce. And if you've ever been through a divorce before, you know of anybody, that's not something that you're typically grateful for. But I remember going on walks, and I have this little trail out where I live, and I've logged. I tell people I've logged millions of miles in that trail because I'm on that trail all the time, and it's a great place to think. And most of the times when I'm out there, there's not a lot of people out there. But I remember being really frustrated with the divorce, and being frustrated with where I was and just the whole situation. And then there was a day I remember being out there, and I just started to express gratitude. If I'm really going to take this mindset of gratitude, JC, that means even right now, right, I've got to begin to express gratitude. And here's what I begin to find is that when I begin to express gratitude, I was able to say thank you for the great things that came out of the marriage. I was able to say thank you even for the hard things, because those hard things were forming things in my own character. They were shaving off character traits that I had that I didn't need to have anymore. And so there's something about this idea of gratitude that even in the hard times when we express gratitude, when we stop and say thank you for the hard times, it rewires our mind so that we begin to find the positive in that situation. Right. The other day I was, because now I think it's something I've kind of mastered. And the other day I had to, I was actually driving here to my office. It was on a Sunday. I had to come and pick something up. And so I thought I would stop in and wash my car at Soapy Joe's, right? Thought I'd wash it and then vacuum it out and then come over here, grab something, and then head back home. Well, I get to Soapy Joe's. I stop running my car, and my car stops running, right? And so then I'm trying to figure it out and what's going on. Well, it ended up needing a new battery, but I ended up going from there to Pep Boys. Pep Boys was closed. My car broke down there again, so I had to get it charged again. Ended up driving from there to AutoZone. They couldn't help me with what I needed to because I had a certain bracket I had to get off, and there's all these things. And my car broke down in their lot, so I had to recharge it. And finally got home, and I had Angelo's Towing came out right by about 10:30 at night. Right, they were busy that day, and I remember being so frustrated because I had a plan that day. If you're anything like me, you're a planner, and I had a plan that day, and everything got upset by that. And there it's 10:30 at nighttime, and the very next day, my wife and I are heading up to the LA area. We've got some things to take care of, and we're staying the night, and kind of like a date night or whatever. And so I'm just frustrated, but in the middle, I was able to stop and just say thank you. Just say thank you. And what it did for me was gave me the sense that, you know what, thank you that it's happening today and not tomorrow. Because imagine if I'd been on, we'd gotten up and we're trying to get up to LA, and all of a sudden my car breaks down and needs a new battery, and all this stuff that took 5 or 6 hours, it then got transferred to Monday. Right? So I was able to quickly change my mind and say, you know what, thank you for this, because obviously I needed a new battery. I've waited too long to get it changed out. I didn't want it to happen Monday. I definitely don't want it to happen when I'm out of town. So thank you for the fact that it happened on a Sunday when I had nothing else going on. And then I began to think even more about it, all these things that came into play, and it just changed the mind. I want the same thing for you. I'm trying to tell you that at this stage in my life, and I'm still growing and I'm still going new places, gratitude has been a key factor for where my life has gone. And maybe you've experienced it as well, but if you haven't yet, I want you to experience this, okay? So again, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. This is the first lesson that I wanna share with you. It's the power and the science of gratitude, because again, if you study this and you go a little deeper, you'll find that there's actual science behind this. When we stop and express thanks, something happens with us, and I promise you this, and this is what that movie The Secret's all about, right? A lot of people think it's kind of spiritual, and it's that too, but one of their biggest messages is where focus goes, energy flows. And so if your mind goes towards gratitude, your mind goes towards being thankful for what you already have, then somehow, and I can't explain this aspect of it, but I'll tell you this, we just begin to attract more into our life, right? That's kind of the law of attraction, and I could talk about that, and maybe in a couple of weeks I'll bring that up, as well. I really believe it, but all of it starts with the mindset of gratitude, that in all things, and from a scriptural perspective, from a biblical perspective, and we are Point Loma, we are a faith-based institution, I'll tell you this, there's a great verse in the Bible that says, in all things, give thanks, right? And it doesn't say give thanks for all things, but it says in all things give thanks. And I will tell you this, I have found that if we give thanks on the good days get better. If we get thanks on the hard days get better as well. There's something about just expressing gratitude that really will transform your life. It'll make you a better leader. Right, you're going to have frustrating people that are going to frustrate the crap out of you. Right, it's just going to happen. Right, but when you begin to express thanks for that person, what you begin to see is that, hey, thank you, universe, God, whoever it is that you're expressing thanks to. You can just say thank you. Right, if you're not a person of faith, just say thank you for putting this person in my path because it's showing me character traits that I need to get better at. Right? If you're married, if you have a spouse, if you've got a spouse, you understand this. Marriage is tough. Marriage is hard. And in those moments where you want to just wring your spouse's neck, right? Because that happens. If you've been married, you know what I'm talking about. Or you're in a long-term, partnership with somebody. In those moments of frustration, stop and say thank you, because this situation right here is showing character flaws that I need to work on and things that I need to get better at. I could talk about this forever. You can tell. Here's the takeaway. There are 7 days between now and when I'll put out the next video. I want you to write, just take time and just list out 7 things. That's your job today. That's your assignment. I want you to list out 7 things that you're thankful for. And then I want to encourage you this, and I can't tell if you're doing this or not, but I want to encourage you this. If you are not a person who practices gratitude on a daily basis, I want to encourage you just for 1 week. Okay. Now, obviously, this assignment's got to be turned in, and I would just want you to write down 7 things that you're grateful for, 1 thing for each day. Okay. And if you can't get the 7, then you got an issue. Okay. And that's something else that we need to figure out. You probably, once you start writing, you could write 150 things right now that you can be grateful for, but just do 7. Okay. So that's the assignment right there. But I want to encourage you to go above and beyond. And you can't get extra credit for this because I can't tell if you've done it or not. But every single day, as soon as you wake up, just express thanks for 1 thing. And right as soon as your head hits the pillow at nighttime, express thanks for 1 thing. And if you're with your spouse or partner, I want to encourage you to do that together. Watch and see. I promise you this. I promise you this. It may sound cheesy right now, but watch and see as you begin to do this slowly over time, how your life forms out. If you are not where you want to be in life right now, maybe you're not making the finances you want to make. Maybe you don't have the job that you want. You're not in the relationship you want to be. Whatever it is, I promise you this. This is the first step right here. Gratitude. Start expressing thanks for what you have and watch and see what begins to happen. Okay, so again, for this week, write 7 things down that you're thankful for. That's all you got to do, and I'll see you in the next video.